fire emergency?
Yes, there's been a plane crash at 72nd and 25th. You need to roll everything because it's right dead across the street.
It's the unthinkable. A plane crash in the heart of Miami.
Stay away from the flames.
Many left the crash scene in a rush, leaving behind important belongings.
It was a fiery scene and very dramatic.
Everybody needs to move all the way back off the sidewalk.
Hundreds of people have witnessed the catastrophe.
I saw the plane coming directly at me.
The plane continued to try to go up and it just fell on the ground and it exploded.
More than 48,000 pounds of jet fuel has turned the plane into a mass of smoking debris.
There weren't a lot of large parts left. The engines were recognizable, pieces of the tail perhaps, but the rest of it was a burned up mess.
If we swing around here, we can see that there are already investigators in the field inspecting parts of the plane that crashed first into this field and then the rest of the plane that seems to have skidded right across Northwest 72nd Avenue.
Bob Benson is eager to get data from the plane's black box recorders.
I got them both. Good work.
We recovered the flight data recorders rather rapidly once we got into the accident scene.
The two recorders are sent to Washington for analysis. In the meantime, Benson is under pressure to figure out what happened. The city of Miami narrowly avoids an unparalleled airplane disaster. NTSB investigators start collecting eyewitness accounts.
There was a fireball on one of the engines on the right wing. As soon as that fireball erupted, he lost it and just went belly down.
A couple of the witnesses mentioned seeing flames coming from the number 4 engine on the right side.
Benson wonders if the plane suffered catastrophic engine failure, which prevented it from getting airborne. They search for a telltale clue that the engines were working. Turbine blades bent sideways suggest they were still spinning rapidly when a plane hits the ground.
We looked inside them, and it looked like they were all operating at high power settings, just from visual examination.
They were definitely spinning.
Investigators rule out engine failure, but quickly get new information from the plane's air traffic controller.
Just after takeoff, he went steeply nose up. I could see the tops of the wings.
The discovery explains the flames witnesses saw. If a plane is pitched too steeply, airflow to the engine is interrupted, causing too much fuel to flow through the engines.
It's simply an airflow issue. There wasn't enough air getting into the engines, and you get a lot of extra fuel that's on fire, and it's going out the back of the engine.
I could see the
NTSB investigator Evan Byrne now wonders why the plane's nose rose up so suddenly.
What this told us early in the investigation was that we either had a problem with the airplane, something that the pilots did during the takeoff, or there may have been something wrong with the load.
Meanwhile, Benson discovers what might be a new piece of evidence.
This aircraft, partially because it's so long, is equipped with a tail bumper. We saw some scraping, some paint residue on it, which means that sometime during its life, it had touched the ground somehow.
If a pilot lifts up too steeply, the tail can rub against the runway. It's called a tail strike.
You can have a tail strike if you rotate too rapidly or if you rotate too early before you have enough speed.
Then investigators discover that the runway used by Flight 101 has white paint down its middle, similar to the white paint found on the plane's tail bumper. Did the Fine Air pilots simply lift their plane too steeply, scraping the runway? They decide to collect paint samples from both the tail bumper and the runway.
It was important for us to determine whether or not the tail struck the runway, so we asked the Dade County Sheriff's Department in their laboratory to look at the paint sample, try to compare it with the center line of the runway.
If the paint is a match, it would suggest the pilots botched the takeoff by lifting the nose at a dangerously steep angle. In the meantime, the investigators' search for more clues is stymied by the fact that the entire cargo hold was consumed by fire.
When you have a lot of fire damage, it hurts an investigation. You'd rather have pristine parts to look at, things that aren't melted and then stuck together.
But then, Benson makes a shocking discovery.
Got something. His bear claw's unlocked.